Mornings with Emma were always predictable. The sunlight came in through the blinds in thin white slats across the hardwood floors, always hitting the exact corner of the rug first. The kettle whistled at the same time every day, 7:12. I'd pour the boiling water into our French press while she hummed in the shower, and together we'd sleepwalk our way through the first 10 minutes of the day like we were in sync. That rhythm was comforting, familiar, and maybe that's why I almost missed it when everything shifted. That morning in our Portland apartment started exactly like that. Mundane, unremarkable. The only thing on my mind was whether I had time to stop for a bagel before work. I was leaning on the kitchen counter scrolling through an old sports article I'd already read twice when Emma's phone buzzed against the porcelain edge of the bathroom sink. Just once. Then again. I looked up without thinking. The screen was still locked, but the preview flashed clearly. "Thanks for last night, Redheart." From Luke. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath. Before I could fully process it, a second notification slid across the screen. A digital receipt from a cocktail bar downtown. 2 drinks, time-stamped just before midnight. I knew that place. It wasn't a place you went with colleagues after work. It was where couples shared expensive appetizers under dim lighting and drank things with flower petals on top. As I stood there trying to make sense of it, my own phone buzzed in my pocket. Gmail. An automatic rideshare receipt had just hit our shared account. Emma 138 Hawthorne Street. 11:47 p.m. I didn't recognize the address. Not a restaurant. Not our apartment. Not any of her friends. Just a random building in a neighborhood we never go to. The knot in my chest formed before I even had the chance to rationalize it away. I didn't want to believe anything yet. Maybe it was a mistake. A group joke. A wrong number. But the messages, the location, the timing, it all lined up like a bad script. And the worst part? It wasn't just the content of the messages or the receipts. It was how calm everything around me still was. The world hadn't reacted. The floor hadn't opened up. It was still just a normal morning with birds chirping outside the window and the kettle now cooling in the sink. The bathroom door creaked open. Steam rolled out in thick waves. Emma appeared, towel wrapped around her chest, hair dripping, already mid-sentence about how we were low on conditioner. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, probably looking like I'd seen a ghost. She noticed my face, stopped talking, and tilted her head slightly, her mouth caught between a frown and a smirk. "What?" she asked. Not annoyed, not worried, just neutral. I held up her phone and turned the screen toward her, the preview still visible. "Who's Luke?" For the briefest second, there was a flicker. One I wouldn't have caught if I hadn't known her for 6 years. A shift in her eyes, like her brain switched tracks. But it was gone so fast I questioned if I saw it at all. "Oh," she said, taking the phone from my hand casually, drying her fingers first on the edge of her towel. "Luke's from marketing. It's a joke. We all had drinks after that team-building thing last night. God, that bartender was terrible." She smiled, completely unfazed, like this was something I was blowing out of proportion. She tapped the notification and swiped it away like she was deleting a spam email. Then she walked past me to the dresser and started picking out her clothes like none of it mattered. I didn't move. My brain was lagging behind. "You got dropped off at 138 Hawthorne," I said. "That's not even near your office." She turned around, one eyebrow raised. "I shared a ride with people. You know how it splits stops all over the place. The driver probably just marked it weird. You can't trust those apps, Ethan." She was tying her robe now, still talking while brushing her hair. Her tone never wavered. "Cool. Even. Practiced. And the message?" I asked, quieter this time. "The heart." She sighed then. Not annoyed. Not guilty. Tired. Like she was explaining algebra to a child who refused to get it. "Again, Ethan, it was a joke. Luke's gay, by the way. Literally talks about his boyfriend nonstop. You know how people are in the office. We mess with each other. It's just emojis. It doesn't mean anything." The thing is, I'd seen her lie before. About little things. Saying she was almost home when she hadn't even left yet. Telling me she wasn't hungry just to eat half my fries. Harmless stuff. But even those lies had a different cadence. A blink too long. A pause. A stray, not this. This was a story that had been rehearsed, details already ironed out. Nothing stammered. Nothing uncertain. Like she'd anticipated the question before it even came. I didn't have anything else to say. Not because I believed her, but because she said it all so convincingly, and I hadn't yet built the courage to challenge it further. And so just like that, the moment passed. She threw on a pair of high-waisted slacks and a silky blouse I didn't recognize. Something newer, trendier than what she usually wore to work. Sprayed a mist of something expensive I'd never smelled on her before. She gave me a peck on the cheek, lips cool from the gloss, and said, "Don't forget your dentist appointment. Okay?" She walked out the door like it was just another Tuesday, and I just stood there. For the rest of the morning, my mind bounced between confrontation and denial. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overthinking it. My anxiety had a history of filling in blanks with worst-case scenarios. She had gone to more work events lately. She had mentioned someone named Luke weeks ago. She did like ironic emojis. But if it was so innocent, why did she get dressed like that? Why was there a heart emoji from a man she's never mentioned before that morning? Why did the receipts line up so perfectly with her being somewhere else? The narrative she gave me was complete, tidy, but the facts still sat there, rigid and cold. The message, the ride, the charge, the address. It was like being gaslit by gravity. I could feel the weight pulling me down, but she was standing next to me, smiling, telling me I was just imagining it. And the worst part? A piece of me wanted to believe her. Not because her story made sense, but because the alternative meant everything between us. The apartment, the routines, the jokes, the years was a house of cards already tipping. So I let it go. Or at least I pretended to. But something had shifted in the foundation. And I knew, whether I was ready to admit it or not, that the morning routine we'd built was no longer mine. It belonged to two strangers, pretending to be a couple, clinking coffee mugs while one of them quietly rewrote the story. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but no one ever tells you how much it hurts to look back clearly. In the days that followed, I kept trying to force my brain back into normalcy. I kept telling myself, "It's fine. You're overthinking again. Don't sabotage your own peace." But peace doesn't live next to denial. Every time I pushed the thought down, something else would bubble up and take its place. A week went by. Emma was suddenly obsessed with the gym. Not just, "Hey, I'm trying a new Pilates class," but full-on twice-a-day workouts. She started coming home with that post-sweat glow, clothes clinging just a little tighter than before, her sports bras now coordinating with matching leggings. Half the time, I didn't even recognize what she was wearing. It was all new, a whole collection that didn't exist in our shared laundry basket before. She claimed it was about health, said she wanted to feel strong again. But something about it felt off, and I hated myself for even thinking that. Since when was working out suspicious? But it wasn't just the gym. It was the perfume. This new, bold scent she started wearing, something expensive, musky, not the light floral tones I was used to. She never wore it at home. I only smelled it in the hallway when she was halfway out the door. And the calendar. We had a shared Google Calendar for syncing our lives, appointments, travel plans, bills. But lately, these random gray blocks started popping up on hers. Just labeled DND. No location, no notes. Always after work. Always lasting hours. I asked about them once, casually, and she waved it off. Deep work, she said. It's a productivity method. Deep work. That was a new one. Then there were the photos. She rarely posted on social media. She wasn't one of those types. But I noticed her phone gallery filling up with new selfies. Bathroom mirrors. Elevator sh*ts. Always dressed like she was going somewhere nice. Never tagged with anyone else and never shared. Just stored. Saved like they were meant for someone. But not for me. I remember the first time I caught one open on her screen by accident. She was at the sink, doing her skincare, and her phone was face up beside her. I saw a burst of thumbnails, one after another, her looking into the mirror with that half smile she only used when she was trying to impress herself. or someone else. She caught me looking, and without missing a beat, she just tilted the screen away. "You're quiet lately," she said. "Everything okay?" And I said yes, because saying no meant starting a conversation I didn't feel equipped to have. Not yet. The moment that stuck with me most happened 2 weeks after the Luke text. We were at this colleague's birthday, Harbor and Company, a trendy seafood place with mood lighting and overpriced oysters, the kind of spot where everyone wears smart casual and pretends they don't hate small talk. Emma looked incredible that night. I mean, truly breathtaking. And I remember thinking how proud I was to be with her. Until she got drunk. We were seated across from each other, elbow to elbow with coworkers I barely knew. Everyone was doing toasts. To friendship, to loyalty, to building futures. The usual. Someone made a joke about marriage being the last real risk in America. People laughed. Emma raised her glass and said, "Marriage is suffocating. Not to me, not quietly, to the whole table." Then she took a sip and giggled. A few people laughed awkwardly, not sure whether it was sarcasm or a cry for help. I tried to play it off, but inside, I froze. I watched her out of the corner of my eye for the rest of the night. She was electric, loud, touchy, laughing harder than necessary at every joke that came from the left side of the table. And then she left. Not with me, not even close. There was this guy, tall, lean, dark jacket, perfect posture. I'd seen him a few times at her office events, but never close enough to learn his name. That night, they left together. She didn't tell me goodbye. She didn't even look at me. I remember standing there with her coat in my hand, still waiting for her to come back inside, thinking she was just getting air or calling a car. But she didn't come back. I texted her once, "Everything okay?" And she replied, "Yes, just helping someone get home. Be back soon." She came back an hour later, smelling like his cologne and brushing her hair out of her face like nothing had happened. "Sorry, just a little chaotic out there," she said, sliding past me into the apartment. The guilt I felt wasn't hers, it was mine. For not asking, for not pushing, for pretending I didn't notice the lies she didn't even try that hard to hide. Over the next few days, I started going back in my head, cataloging every moment like a detective reviewing old case files. The late nights at work that became routine, the sudden lock screen on her phone, the new passwords on apps we used to share, the way she turned the screen away when I walked by, how she suddenly needed space after years of being glued to my side. One night, I came home early to surprise her. She wasn't there. Her car was gone. No message, no calendar block. Just absence. I sat on the couch with the lights off, waiting for the door to click. When it finally did, she walked in humming, and carrying a tote bag I hadn't seen before. Her hair was windblown, her cheeks flushed. She stopped when she saw me. "Oh, hey," she said casually. "You're home early. Where were you?" She blinked like the question offended her. "Out. Needed some air." That was it. No details. No follow-up. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the timeline didn't add up. The makeup was too fresh. The alibi too thin. And the hum in her voice sounded too much like guilt trying to dress itself up as contentment. After that, I started writing things down. Not for proof. For sanity. I needed to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Wednesday, Emma says she's at a networking event. Location tag says she's at a wine bar downtown. Friday, calendar blocked from 6 to 11 p.m. Girls' dinner. Only one plate on the Uber Eats receipt when she gets home, ramen for one. Sunday, says she's going for a run. Comes back in full makeup. None of this on its own was enough. But combined, painted a picture I didn't want to hang on any of our walls. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my brother. Not even David, my oldest friend, who would have immediately told me to stop being polite and start asking real questions. I guess I wasn't ready to hear the answers yet. Maybe I still hoped I was wrong. Maybe the saddest part is that I still wanted to be wrong. I still looked at her in the morning and hoped she'd give me something. Some trace of the old version of us. A hand on my arm while I made coffee. A long look before she left for work. Anything that reminded me we used to be a team. But she didn't. Her eyes barely lingered. Her goodbye kisses got shorter. Her replies turned into echoes. Looking back, I can't believe I ignored so much for so long. But that's how it happens, right? It doesn't start with a confession. It starts with the little things. With small, daily absences. With lies too boring to question. With a look that lasts 1 second too long and leaves you wondering who taught them to look that way. With a laugh that isn't meant for you. And by the time you notice, you're already the outsider in your own life. By the time Friday rolled around, I already knew I wouldn't be able to sit through the evening without doing something. My body felt like it had been running on static all week. Tight chest, shallow breaths. This constant hum of dread in my ears like tinnitus. Emma had mentioned it on Monday, offhandedly while scrolling through her phone. Oh, by the way, we have a team building thing Friday night. Waterfront bar, kind of fancy. I'll be late. That was all. Like she was telling me we were out of oat milk. I didn't ask follow-up questions, and she didn't offer more. But something about the way she said we stayed with me. It was casual. Too casual. And her face didn't look at me when she said it. It looked just past me. Like she already knew I wouldn't like it. Friday came. She wore a dress I hadn't seen before. Tight, elegant, midnight blue. Not office party casual. Not business chic. This was the kind of dress you wore when you wanted to be remembered by someone. She did her makeup differently too. Red lips, sharper eyeliner, perfume that hit like a warning. I watched her get ready from the kitchen doorway. She barely acknowledged me. Just a quick "don't wait up," and a wave like I was the doorman, not her husband. The moment the door shut, I grabbed my keys. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't trying to catch her in the act. Honestly, I don't even know what I was hoping for. Maybe I wanted to be proven wrong one last time. Maybe I needed to see something undeniable. Something that would take the weight of wondering off my shoulders. The bar wasn't far. A sleek new spot on the river with huge glass windows and soft jazz bleeding through the walls. Emma's car was already there when I arrived. Parked right in front like fate didn't even try to be discreet. I didn't go in. I stayed in my car across the street, parked half behind a delivery truck so no one could see me clearly. I turned the ignition off and just watched. First, nothing. People came and went. A few groups lingered near the entrance, laughing and smoking. Then, through the floor-to-ceiling window, I saw her, Emma, sitting near the back, in one of those round velvet booths that are meant for quiet conversation and soft touches. She wasn't alone. He was with her. The same guy from the birthday party. The tall one. The one I'd seen her leave with. Now I had a name, Luke. He was facing me. She had her back partially turned, but I knew her posture like a second language. Her shoulders were leaned in. His hand rested on hers, then moved up to tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear. She laughed. Big, head-tilted back kind of laugh. The one she hadn't used with me in months. They weren't pretending. It wasn't some group mixer or innocent drinks after work. It was a date. A real one. At 9:43 p.m., while I sat there frozen in the dark, my phone buzzed. It was an automated push notification from our joint credit card. River Loft Hotel. Late checkout plus champagne service. I stared at it. For a long time, I didn't need to refresh the transaction log. I didn't need to guess. I already knew what room service with champagne meant at a hotel across the street from where she was sitting, holding another man's hand. At 9:58, they stood up. She adjusted her dress. He reached for her coat. They stepped out through the side door into the courtyard, said something to each other, and then, without hesitation, they kissed. Not a goodbye peck. Not a drunk mistake. This was practiced. Comfortable. Familiar. Then they walked toward the hotel. Together. No glancing around. No guilt. Just two people moving forward into the night, like it was something they'd done before. I didn't follow. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream or throw things or run after her like the movies tell you you're supposed to do when you find out your marriage is a lie. Instead, I just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, chest hollow, breath stuck somewhere in the middle of my throat. The cold from the window seeped into my skin. My pulse was the only thing reminding me I was still alive. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Some part of me had been expecting this exact ending for weeks, maybe even months. I just hadn't let myself say it out loud. I drove around for a long time after that, took turns without thinking, ended up by the industrial park on the east side, where the air smelled like rain and old concrete. I parked under a flickering street lamp and stared at nothing. It hit me all at once. Not just the betrayal, but the weight of how much I'd let slide leading up to it. The nights I stayed silent, the excuses I accepted, the way I clung to maybe, because it felt safer than definitely. Because once you say it out loud, once you name it, it becomes real. And then you have to act. But there was no ambiguity left. No gray area to rationalize. I had seen her. I had watched her kiss him. I had the receipts, the timestamps, the hotel confirmation. There was nothing left to protect. I didn't go home right away. I sat on that cold leather seat until my legs went numb, until the heater blew nothing but recycled breath, until the city around me dimmed into a quiet that felt like morning. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just existed. That night marked the last time I ever saw her as my wife. From that point forward, she was just a woman with my last name and a lockbox of lies. The next morning, I woke up on the couch in our apartment with my shoes still on and my jacket draped across my chest like a bad substitute for comfort. The air in the room was stale. Her scent still hung in the corners like a ghost. I looked around and realized every piece of furniture, every framed photo, every carefully chosen candle, it all felt like someone else's life, someone I no longer recognized. I didn't need a confrontation anymore. I didn't need to hear her say it. I had the truth, and that was enough. Sometimes, proof doesn't come with fireworks or dramatic confessions. Sometimes, it's a quiet moment in your car, parked under streetlights, watching your whole world disappear through a hotel archway. And when it happens, when the truth finally sits down beside you and refuses to leave, the silence is the loudest sound in the world. I didn't go home that night, not right away. After watching Emma and Luke disappear into that hotel courtyard, I drove without purpose. No music, no destination, just the soft hum of tires rolling over wet asphalt and streetlights flickering like they were trying to blink the truth away. I must have circled half of Portland before I realized how far I'd gone. At one point, I ended up near Forest Park, where the roads go quiet and the trees lean in like they're trying to listen. That stretch of road became something like a sanctuary for a few hours. No pedestrians, no distractions, just me and the kind of silence that doesn't ask questions. I pulled over near a gravel turnout and shut off the engine. My fingers were stiff from gripping the wheel. I looked at my hands and didn't recognize them. Clenched, colorless, trembling at the edges. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes or an hour. Time wasn't linear anymore. It bent and folded on itself like memory. Eventually, I stepped out of the car. The river wasn't far. I walked toward the sound of water like I was being pulled. The wind hit harder near the shoreline. Cold and bracing, it cut through the fabric of my jacket and made me feel raw, alive, something. My mind kept replaying what I saw. Emma's head tilted toward him, their bodies sinking in that unthinking way people do when they've done it before. That kiss. The way she didn't look over her shoulder. Like I didn't exist. I stood at the edge of the embankment, hands in my pockets, and stared at the current. The river didn't care. It just moved, steady and indifferent, swallowing moonlight without a second thought. I envied that. The grief didn't come all at once. It arrived in pieces. First as disbelief, then as shame, then as something heavier. Resignation. Not just that she had cheated, but that I had let myself live in denial for so long. That I'd ignored the signs. That I'd chosen the version of her I wanted to believe in over the one right in front of me. Maybe that's the hardest part. Accepting that the person you love is capable of becoming someone who doesn't mind hurting you. Sometime near dawn, I drove back. Not home. Just back toward the city. The streets were empty except for delivery trucks and a few early joggers. Portland at that hour feels like it's still dreaming, caught between yesterday and whatever comes next. I pulled into our lot just as the sun started bleeding into the sky. I didn't expect her to be home yet, and she wasn't. The apartment looked the same. The mugs from yesterday's breakfast still in the sink. Her slippers by the door. Our jackets still hanging side by side. But none of it felt like mine anymore. The space felt hollow, like the furniture had been rearranged by strangers and every object was now playing a role in a lie. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I packed. Not for a trip. Not for some dramatic exit. I just packed. I opened the closet and pulled out the essentials. Jeans, a few button-ups, my sneakers, a couple of t-shirts, my laptop, the chargers. I didn't touch the sentimental stuff. No photos, no anniversary cards. None of the handwritten notes we used to leave for each other in coat pockets or lunch bags. Those didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. Packing wasn't an emotional act. It was surgical. Like I was cleaning up a crime scene, only the blood was invisible and the body was trust. There's something oddly empowering about it. Folding your life into a suitcase not to run away, but to take back control. To say, I choose to leave before I let this space decide who I am. Around 7:30 a.m., I made coffee. Not out of habit, but because I needed to do something with my hands. I stood by the window, mug in hand, staring down at the empty street, waiting, listening for the sound of her key in the lock. Came around 8:05. The door creaked open like it always did. Her heels clicked softly across the floor. She paused when she saw me standing there. Her eyes were red. Her hair pulled back loosely, lipstick mostly gone. She looked tired but not guilty, not panicked, just tired. "Oh," she said, surprised but composed. "You're up." I didn't answer. She walked past me, dropped her bag by the counter, and grabbed a glass of water like it was any other morning. She didn't offer an explanation. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look at me for more than a second. And I realized she wasn't expecting a confrontation, because she didn't think she'd get one. Maybe she thought I'd keep pretending. Maybe she thought I'd fold, like I had before, and accept whatever half-truth she offered. Maybe that's why her lies had gotten lazier, bolder, because I had trained her to believe I wouldn't leave. But she didn't see the suitcase. Not yet. I left it zipped by the door, standing upright, like a silent witness. I didn't rush her. I didn't force a conversation. I let her pour her water. Let her drink it in silence. Let the weight of the moment settle into the space between us. When she finally turned to face me, I said just one thing. "I saw you." The words hung in the air like smoke. She froze. Her expression didn't change at first. Just a subtle blink. Then her jaw tightened. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. And that's when I saw it, the flicker, the recognition, the silent "oh" behind her eyes. She knew I wasn't guessing. "Ethan," she started, voice low, slow, soft. "Don't," I said, shaking my head. She opened her mouth again. Maybe to lie, maybe to beg. I don't know. But I raised a hand to stop her. "I don't want a story. I don't want damage control. I want silence." She didn't argue. She sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, face in her hands. She stayed there, didn't cry, didn't move, just stayed still like a statue of regret. I walked to the door, picked up the suitcase, and turned the handle. Her voice came, small and brittle. "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But not here." "Ethan, wait." I paused, looked back. Her eyes were glassy now. Her voice cracked when she said, "Can we talk? Just for a second, please." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "You made your choices. This is mine." And I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I didn't leave a note. I just stepped into the hallway and kept walking. Down the stairs, through the lobby, into the crisp October air that smelled more like freedom than anything else. My breath fogged in front of me, and for the first time in weeks, I inhaled fully. I booked a motel on the edge of the city. One of those highway-side places with vending machines and cheap soap and carpets that always feel a little damp. The room had nothing personal in it, which made it perfect. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the stiff mattress, and exhaled. I wasn't okay. Not yet. But I wasn't stuck anymore either. And that was the beginning. I didn't reach out. I didn't check in. I didn't even look at her social media, though I knew if I did, I'd probably find nothing. Emma was too careful for that. The motel room was silent except for the hum of the mini-fridge and the occasional knock of footsteps on the walkway outside. For the first time in years, I wasn't sharing my space with anyone. No dual alarms. No hairdryer buzzing in the morning. No debate about what to watch on Netflix. Just me, a suitcase, and the realization that the life I had been building had collapsed on itself while I wasn't looking. I stayed gone for 2 days. Not because I was hiding, but because I needed to be clear-headed. I needed to separate myself from the version of me that always folded when she cried, always backed down when she looked at me with those big, wet eyes and said the right words in the right tone. This time, I wanted to walk back into that apartment not as a man asking for answers, but as someone ready to reclaim his dignity. When I finally returned, I didn't knock. I had a key. My name was still on the lease, but it felt like I was stepping into someone else's home. Even the air felt altered, like something had been aired out and sprayed over. Her scent still lingered faintly, but the emotional temperature had shifted. Colder, emptier, a hollow echo of the place I used to know. Emma was sitting on the couch when I walked in. She stood up fast when she saw me. Eyes puffy, mouth trembling like she hadn't planned what to say but had rehearsed 50 versions of it anyway. "Ethan," she said. A whisper. A plea. Like she wasn't sure I was real. "I'm not here to fight," I said, locking the door behind me. "I'm here to finish this." Her expression faltered. She stepped forward instinctively, like muscle memory was dragging her toward me, but stopped when I put my hand out. Not forcefully, just firmly enough to set the boundary. She nodded, swallowing. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice uneven. "Please, just let me explain." "You don't need to explain anything," I said. "I already know." "But you don't know why." That made me laugh quietly, bitterly. "You really think there's a version of this where the why makes it okay?" Her voice cracked. "I'm not saying it makes it okay. I'm saying I lost myself. I've been drowning at work. I felt invisible in this relationship. Luke just noticed me." There it was. That phrase. The cliché. "He noticed you," I repeated. "And you decided to start a second life with him instead of talking to me." "I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't mean for it to go that far." "You got dressed up for him. You lied about where you were. You checked into a hotel with him. That's not an accident, Emma. That's a decision. Over and over again." She didn't argue. Didn't even deny it. Her eyes filled, but I felt numb. I cried my tears in silence already. This wasn't heartbreak anymore, it was acceptance. "I wasn't happy," she said. "And instead of telling me that, you chose betrayal." "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared that saying it out loud would end us. And cheating didn't?" Silence. She finally sat back down on the couch, head in her hands, as if the weight of everything was catching up to her all at once. I stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. I noticed the framed photo on the wall, the one from our anniversary trip to the coast. We were smiling, wrapped in sweaters, windswept. I stared at it and realized I didn't recognize the man in that picture anymore. He was hopeful. He was building something. I was just trying to survive now. "I'm leaving," I said. "For good." Her head snapped up. "No. Ethan, please don't do this. We can fix it. We can go to therapy, we can rebuild. I'm not interested in rebuilding something that was burning while you pretended you didn't smell smoke." "I made a mistake," she said, standing up again, her voice breaking. "A terrible one. But we've spent years together. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It used to," I said. "But it doesn't undo what you've done. And I'm not interested in spending more years wondering if you'll do it again." Tears started falling freely now. She took a step forward, and this time I didn't stop her. She reached for my hand. I let her hold it, for a second. Maybe for closure. Maybe because some stupid part of me still remembered what it was like to feel safe with her. But I pulled away. I grabbed my documents from the drawer, passport, birth certificate, the folder with our lease and joint accounts. Then I walked to the bedroom and picked up the rest of what I hadn't taken to the motel. I could hear her crying behind me, but I didn't turn around. At the door, I paused. I pulled the apartment key off my ring, walked over to the counter, set it down gently. "You don't have to keep lying," I said. "Not to me, and not to yourself." Then I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. I didn't say, "I hope you're happy." I didn't say, "I still love you," even though in some way I probably still did. What I said was nothing, because some silences speak louder than any speech ever could. I took a rideshare to the motel, booked another week, and didn't tell anyone where I was, not yet. The place was quiet, ugly, and smelled faintly of mildew, but I could think there. I could breathe. I didn't have to share oxygen with someone who had we *p***nized in *Macy. I called David the next morning. He was the only person I trusted enough to say the words out loud to. "She cheated," I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then a breath. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "Do you need anything?" I just needed to say it. To someone real. He offered me his couch. I declined for now. I didn't want to bring this version of myself into someone else's space until I figured out how to stand on my own again. For the first time in what felt like years, I wrote in my journal. I opened a fresh page and wrote only one sentence. "This is the moment I choose myself." No matter what came next, lawyers, paperwork, awkward texts from mutual friends, this part was mine, and no one could take it away from me. At the motel, silence became therapy. David connected me with a counselor, and slowly, I saw the cracks began long before the cheating. Then came a letter Luke's wife, Mia. She'd been watching, too. She gave me a flash drive, camera footage, parking logs, proof this wasn't new. Meanwhile, Emma faced an HR probe over the affair. For the first time, I felt the power shift. My boundaries weren't just personal, they were finally visible. Our mediator meeting was emotionless. Accounts split, lease closed, lives untangled. Emma cried, asked for another chance. I didn't yell, I just signed. Trust doesn't come back like that. I moved into a studio near the river, booked therapy, and listed goals. Run again, transfer departments, visit my parents. The future didn't scare me anymore. Her betrayal had ended one chapter, but for the first time in months, I was writing my own.